So scene one, not quite act one. I still remember the thought going through my head as I wrote the note. And I still remember the thought going through my head as I walked to the medicine cabinet. And I still remember the thought going through my head as I intentionally swallowed those pills. I don't want to go to gym class. So imagine a young, intelligent man of artistic persuasions growing up in McKeesport, Pennsylvania. I had a fantastic childhood. Baby of 4, close to my siblings and cousins, wonderful mother, workaholic father. Yet I felt different from most of my peers. While many of the boys my age could recite statistics about completion passes and batting averages, I could recite the entire Rodgers and Hammerstein songbook. True story, my mother would wake me up every morning by opening the door and coming in and, "Oh, what a beautiful morning." And I would throw off my covers and say, "Oh, what a beautiful day." And it was. Until high school. You know, when testosterone kicks in and teasing becomes an art form, and my apparent differences felt isolating. So scene 2. Boston, Massachusetts, 1986, college days. Came to discover I'm not the only boy with artistic persuasions. But then a trip to the doctor and a questionable diagnosis of 3 letters that, when strung together, meant a death sentence. And then 2 weeks later, discovered it was a mix-up in records, and I'm given a clean bill of health. Ecstatic, right? Elated. It's just going to happen anyway. Little wonder that my first specialty after graduating medical school was in HIV care. So, scene 3, Seattle, Washington. I went into naturopathic medicine because I yearned for something different. I just didn't know what it was at the time. While I loved studying diet, nutrition, botanical medicine, homeopathy, physical medicine, there was still a come in, tell your symptoms, walk out with a prescription attitude that didn't sit right with me. It didn't have life. It didn't have breath. And I came to realize that I went into healthcare because I was interested in one question alone. How do you want to live? This realization has shaped the course of my professional life. And in 2005, I participated in a hospice study where I went to the bedside of patients twice a week until they died, leading them in guided meditation. And I've done over 500 bedside hospice meditations. All my patients, and those particularly, taught me about how to be alive and heal. Now let me clarify, heal, healing, health. It comes from the root word halen, which means to make whole. Rather than fix and cure, something that's virtually impossible to do in the last 2 weeks of life in hospice, you can still be alive and heal. And for me, the key is breathing into our lives. Breath, breathing. It's the universal thread that bookends our life. It's the very first independent act we do outside the womb, and the last we take before we die. On average, we breathe about 14 to 18 breaths per minute, which is about 23,000 breaths per day, which is over 8 million breaths per year. But how do we breathe them, and what are they like? So let's do a little experiment. I would like you all to pause and count in your head the number of emails and or texts you looked at before you got here today, okay? Okay, count. Now, notice, trick question. How are you breathing? Were any of you holding your breath? Were you clenching your jaw or tightening your belly or holding your shoulders in or doing the... And for what purpose? I simply invited you to think and remember. So this breathing thing, it really demonstrates how we approach our life. So think about this. In the last week, how many of you have said to yourself or heard somebody else say, I didn't have a moment to catch my breath? So breathing is a physical act, surely, but it's an emotional and spiritual one as well. Listen to our language. What inspires you? What makes you gasp for air? What knocks the winds out of your sails? What makes you catch your breath? Breathing demonstrates this mind-body connection perfectly. To breathe into our life demands vulnerability. And to be vulnerable, we have to be open, honest, and authentic. But how can we do that when we hold our breath? When we are physically tight, when our muscles are tense, they send a signal to the brain that says, be alert and on guard. When we are tight or tense or stressed for whatever reason, whether it's thinking about emails or texts or mortgages or student loans, or if it's due to the standard American posture. You know the one? The nervous system sees it as the same. Be alert and on guard. Be on guard, we can't be inspired. So let's look at that word. Inspiration, from the root spiritus, spirit, to breathe in spirit, to breathe in life. How many of us are so afraid of breathing in life? It's too much. Or conversely, expiration, to breathe our spirit back into the world. Someone might notice me. I might be seen. When I was 16, I stopped breathing. I literally stopped exhaling. I was so terrified of anyone noticing me, of not being good enough, not being acceptable. I literally attempted to quiet my own breath. And then years later, when I thought my breath was going to be snuffed out for good, I stopped inspiring. What's the point? Why take in any more life? I was fortunate to have a family who encouraged me to be who I am and to breathe my spirit back into the world. And even now, despite some fears and doubts, my love for life fills my lungs with air. Yet, every day, I see patients with a host of symptoms, from asthma to hypertension, from IBS to PTSD, and the one common denominator is lack of breathing into their lives. I believe we as a culture are so uncomfortable tolerating any distressing emotion or experience because we see discomfort as a personal weakness or failing. If we have to always be on guard for the next attack, we can never fully breathe in and out. And we will never be well. We will never heal. We will never find peace. To breathe into our lives demands surrender, showing up and unapologetically saying, this is what's happening now. This is what I'm feeling. This is who I am. So scene 4. This page is yet unwritten, yet we can write it together. How do you want to live this one singular moment? How do you want to breathe into your lives? So for a moment, I invite us to all settle into our seats. Like really, settle into our seats. Close your eyes or look downward and allow yourself to be vulnerable in your body, mind, and spirit. To allow the belly to soften, which invites the breath in, which invites in spirit, which invites in life. And if any of that's uncomfortable, that's okay as well. My plea for all of us is that we have the courage to be compassionate to ourselves, to breathe into our lives, and unapologetically say, this is what's happening now. This is how I feel. This is who I am. And seen. Thank you.